Okay, my contemporary review shall begin like this. Pacing is very important in storytelling. That's it. That's the lesson. That's all that should be said when it comes towards this show. My God, I've never felt so unbelievably bored with typical shit uh in a long time. Like, well, not a long time. There's been a lot of shitstorms of bad content that have came out recently, but this has been something that honestly was just so bonkers. Why would you waste so much time with so much unnecessary shit, especially when you then have such a lackluster attempt at fucking just general interest in what it is that you're trying to build up? Everything that you're showcasing or trying to highlight that's leading to whatever grander venture that you're going to bring up later within your series is damn near put at a standstill because it just seems so it takes so long for it to get to the point of what it is it's doing. I should know this. I tend to do that a lot when I'm talking, so I think I know what I'm talking about. But this was unbelievably boring. Like, there was nothing really interesting going on. You kind of, again, following the same motif from the first episodes, characters are just going from spot to spot without any type of backing behind it. Like, there's no logical explanation behind a lot of the things that's going on. Hell, you had a part where Nami essentially tried to betray them and then leave. And then when she left, just upon seeing the town, just kind of was an awestruck of what it was that she was looking at, and then just didn't move. And then that didn't register as anything that made sense. And it was like, I understand if she was like, oh my God, this is the town. But then she kept running. But she literally just stood there until Buggy's crew was able to catch up to her and then drag her back in. And that just seemed bonkers. You also have basically the what is it? Essentially like a continuity or a power scaling system to where it's like Luffy and Zoro are able to lift and move this heavy ass safe. Yet for some reason, when tied up by simple rope, there's just no way that they could possibly get out of it. Hell, even when it comes to the when it came to like Luffy being tied up by Buggy, rather than showcasing that he had a feat of strength when he was able to pull away from the little pull arm and leg torture device the Buggy had him hooked up to, why didn't you just have him like break that or something rather than he just kind of slipped out of the rope? Because if he was able to slip out of it, why didn't it do that earlier? His body was still stretchy and rubbery, so it would make sense that essentially he slipped out the first chance they were pulling rather than just a little bit later when he was trying real hard. But if you was to show it that he actually broke it, that seems like it would have been far more of a significant outlook on what it was that you had going on. There's really not that much to talk about this in this episode, as they generally just kind of pull the exact same mistakes, but it just made it even worse considering the fact that they just kind of focused on elements in order to pander out their runtime rather than actually give some type of general intrigue in what the hell they had going on. Hell, having Garp arrest Morgan without actually stating why they were arresting Morgan, considering the fact that when he came to the base, he was scot-free. So what justification did he have for arresting Morgan rather than anyone in the Navy kind of speaking up about whatever crimes he committed? They didn't do anything with that. So because they didn't mention anything with that, him arresting Morgan just kind of made no sense. And again, much like with the first episode, they just had elements done without actually giving any justification behind it. And it's like, you knew Morgan was corrupt, but Garp didn't know Morgan was corrupt, or Garp didn't see anything that signified that Morgan was corrupt. So the justification behind him getting arrested didn't come from anywhere. So they just arrested him because that's what happens in the original One Piece. So they just arrested Morgan in this One Piece because it happens in the original. But again, no justification behind it. Same thing with Buggy and his obsession or his anger towards Shanks. You didn't give the concise reason behind it. You had him say it, and it just kind of played off that like maybe Shanks isn't all that Luffy thinks of him. But one of the beauties of what going on in One Piece, sorry to instill my fandomness with this. One of the beauties of what happened with One Piece was exactly how disillusioned Buggy was when it came towards his hatred towards Shanks. You saw how they both were when they were chore boys back in the day. But the significance of that was exactly how delusional Buggy is and how sporadic his personality is, because of the fact that to Shanks, him and Buggy are close friends, while to Buggy, everything that he has suffered has been at the hands of Shanks, and it's his fault that he's the way that he is now. But again, that's levity brought into the series to kind of make light of a serious situation in the moment. Buggy is basically about to kill Luffy. Luffy understands and knows that Buggy apparently met the great pirate like Shanks, yet for some reason Buggy turned out the way that he turned out, as well as the fact that essentially Buggy just has no type of respect for Shanks whatsoever. When upon looking at the hearing the story, you see there was like, well, there's no reason, like Buggy's whole issue with Shanks is just his own issue. So it's kind of a funny little reasoning towards what essentially is a very funny and well done fight. But in accordance to how they did everything on in this show, the fight was really lackluster. Now I'll give them credit towards exactly how they went about him being the detachable kid, because that's all that they really did with Buggy, like even so far as to mimic the effects of like him motioning his body to pop apart rather than just naturally doing so as it should have did. It that looked okay, that was fine, except for when his head popped off. Like that was clearly but aside from that, that looked fine. But again, you're dealing with essentially the same issues like with the first episode, where you got a bunch of unlikable characters, a nonsensical story, and just moving from beat to beat within the story without having any type of context behind it that justifies the actions of what's going on. Garp questioning Kobe the way that he did just was weird and off-putting, because it's like, well, if you have these suspicions about him, why did he join with the Navy? Why wouldn't anyone think of this as suspicious? Why didn't Helmeppo say anything about the fact that he remembers Kobe knocking him out, which led to the pirates escaping, rather than Morgan giving him credit for saving Helmeppo? How does that make any sense? Like, you could at least have Helmeppo say again, a throwaway line of like, I don't remember what took place, but he still feels bad that Morgan is thinking that he's the reason that they got away. That easy fixes to your like general issues that you got going on with your show. But I'm gonna stop it there so I can get into my fandom review. Again, Jesus Christ, you people make absolutely no sense. How dare you say that you're a fan? So for whatever reason, you have Garp all gung-ho towards finding Luffy. Now, I didn't mention this last time, but essentially you also had it stated where Luffy, for whatever reason, lives under a fucking floorboard in Windmill Village near the pier or whatever. And so he has no family to speak of, which again totally goes against everything and anything that you know about One Piece, especially when it comes to Luffy. And again, these people wrote this shit after all of this information was made very much apparent later on within the series. So you didn't need to highlight or showcase it, but if you just stuck with the format that the original series had, which is that it left it ambiguous, then you're able to work with that later on. So instead of having a throwaway line of, you know, the kid ain't got no family or nothing like that, you just don't talk about it. So then when his family is brought up, it's held in the same high regard that it is when it's done naturally within the regular series. You fucking hack. It's so ridiculous that essentially you have someone who would go about changing just small aspects of a character for absolutely no reason and then have no justification behind it. Like, there's no reason to do this. And then you're going to have Garp essentially pester and try to go after Monkey D. Luffy, who at this point in time is nowhere near any type of significance for a vice fucking admiral of the Navy. But yet you have to do this. And then you consistently, and it's like, obviously you're doing this so that way when it's revealed that he is his grandfather, you're going to make that be as if it's a big grandiose twist within the series. And that makes absolutely no sense. And you're also going to use that as a pushing off point for Kobe to, I guess, man up at some point, which again, shouldn't have happened because you see that being done and taking place early on when Kobe is with Luffy because he inspired him to do so, and then you move on from Kobe. You move on from that person. You get rid of him. He is not necessary until much later within the series. Why were you trying to force why are you trying to force any other outlook behind it? This shit is ridiculous because, again, it's doing the exact same shit that they did with Cowboy Bebop. You are taking so many unnecessary angles towards how you handle these characters when it does nothing to increase or justify whatever it is that they're doing. Hell, the aspect of them looking for the Grand Line map, upon me looking back in and seeing exactly what went down when it came to that map already had belonged to Buggy, which makes sense considering that he already been to the Grand Line. But it's a map that essentially was made to show how he would get into the Grand Line. So them taking it and how they came about doing it was something that just was kind of a crazy offshoot chance type of situation. So anything else, so essentially doing what they're doing now, which is that he was planning on stealing it from Morgan, he just never got around to it, just didn't make any goddamn sense. And then again, with the nonsensical aspect of this series, you have it opened up where they get essentially attacked by Buggy in a fashion that's reminiscent of when Thriller Bark happens, when, with the flare going up and signaling the Thriller Bark ship exactly where their ship is at. It was similar to that, but again, there was no logic behind it because no one was watching them. So if no one was watching them, how the fuck did they know where they were? They gave nothing about that. And again, you're doing something that just makes absolutely no sense because you end the episode with Nami obviously contacting Arlong to let him know that he has the map or whatever, to let him know that she has the map or whatever. But again, Arlong is from the Grand Line. Why would he need that? Boy, this is so stupid. It's so stupid. It's so bad. It makes no sense. It is killing the romance aspect of what initially is the Romance Dawn concept behind One Piece. And you're not giving any clarity behind the reason why Luffy does the actions that he does, because it is stated in One Piece where it's like Luffy is basically like a hopeless romantic, just the idea behind the passion that people have towards their dreams or things that they care about and they love. It's what inspires Luffy to either help those people or do right by them and whatnot. But essentially, all this show is doing is just trying to highlight that Luffy is a different breed of pirate. Like, he's the only one anyone has ever seen that's actually been nice. And that just makes no sense. It's so unbelievably dumb. And you keep trying to have Zoro be so unbelievably catty that it just does not work. God, it doesn't work. I find myself looking at this, and every once in a while there'll be a moment where I go, okay, yeah, this is what that character will do, and then after that it's completely out of the way. Like, they just go out of their way to make that character fucking unrecognizable, and it is just painful to look at. It is so painful to watch. I actually liked the fact that Buggy had the moment where he essentially got upset about Luffy mishearing Luffy or thinking that he's talking about his nose. I like that. I thought that part was funny, but essentially having it to where everyone gasped at that, or that the townspeople were held captive so he can have like a dumbass circus spotlight show, that none of that made any sense because there was nothing behind it. They had him say what he said about Shanks, but again, it's like you could have had like a quick little montage of flashbacks, little still pictures or something like that, where again, it would have been just funny and some levity brought onto the series, because again, nothing has been done on the series that really made me laugh or anything like that, or really enjoy the stuff that goes on between the characters, the nuances, the funny jokes and things like that Ichiro is known for in the original One Piece. And I really feel that it's lacking showcasing that, considering the fact that that's a huge portion of One Piece that keeps it in such high spirits and keeps it a very fan favorite type of series. But the fact that you couldn't even showcase that, because like I said before, having Buggy talk about Shanks in such a negative way, but realistically his relationship with Shanks, as far as Shanks is concerned, they're actually close friends, is a hilarious thing. Like, that's a hilarious thing. And then it's brought on and it's built upon later on within the series. And if you cared to think that you were actually going to do something, why not follow that? Why not do that? again, it's the same mistakes that they did from Cowboy Bebop. They learned absolutely nothing. Whoever did this was so far up their own ass, they could smell their snot. Damn it! They could smell their snot far up their ass. Doesn't make any sense. And yet, I said it. It's I don't know how many other adjectives I could use to say not good. I didn't even use that many, but just not good. It's so incomprehensible. And again, looking at it from just a baseline perspective, if you don't know anything about One Piece, this is hard to follow. You question a lot of the stuff that they got going on. But if you do know about One Piece, then a lot of the things that they're doing just make absolutely no sense, aside from the fact that, well, I know story-wise this is supposed to take place like this. But the story isn't taking place like that. So then what the fuck is the reason behind showing me this thing? Oh, it's so unbelievably stupid. It's so unbelievably dumb. I am not happy. I do not like this. And I'm about to keep pushing on. Why? I don't know. I said I would. So, yeah. Also, why have Nami do the whole secret thing like that? Oh boy, it just screams out wrong. It's just wrong. They highlight and inform you an unnecessary thing. Like when Captain Morgan was talking about Koro in the first episode, they highlight and talk about unnecessary stuff like that. Yet they gloss over things that are actually necessary for the story, or things that are actually key and current and what they have going on. You're not giving the characters any symbolism of their strength, which justifies how they're able to fight certain people later on. But yet for some reason you are showing them have these fight scenes where they're supposedly badass and whatnot. Hell, I felt so uninspired when it finally when it showed Shanks' crew throw down against the mountain bandits, because it was like, what is this? What is this slow moving garbage? What is this just drudge that I'm supposed to see from essentially the pirate crew that I should essentially compare the current main characters with, to where this is what it means to have a great pirate crew. This is what we'll be getting to. This is what the lengths will be reaching. Show me them doing stuff like that. Well, show me them being so unbelievably badass that it's like, I don't even see a comparison towards what Luffy, Zoro, and Nami are capable of even reaching at this point. Show me that. Show me just them obliterate this mountain bandit like it's nothing. Instead, they're flipping around, grabbing guns and stuff like that, and it's like, clearly they're going to win, but this is just too much. This is too much, and it's uninspiring. And then even when Shanks loses his arm, the moment itself is so taken back because of how bad the pacing is, that you have the arm get taken, but it kind of looks like the sea beast just like lunged at and just bit him a little bit, just kind of like tried to nibble him, and then lunge back, only for them to focus on Shanks looking at him and telling him to go away. And rather it be a moment of the sea beast is charging again to eat him and Luffy, and then that moment happens, which scares it and makes him run off. You have it to where it's like a staring contest that just is stretched out longer than it needs to be. And it is so hard to look at. It's so hard to watch, because it's like, what is this pacing? Where are we going with this? You literally are showing the sea beast blink so his eye can open up and his pupils get dilated. Why the fuck would you do that? And then if this is all you're going to show the sea beast, how sad is it that you're not going to show when Luffy takes off for the first time and punches the motherfucker out of revenge for what happened with Shanks, to then justify and showcase how much stronger he has gotten since that moment? Like I said, you focus and highlight on Shanks' crew beating up the mountain bandits, but you don't show Luffy's increased strength. You don't show like these characters being as strong as they're supposed to be, but you just have these weird flip-floppy ways of handling shit. I mean, hell, they even had Buggy put him in a tank with seawater in it for some reason, and then they did what the movies do, which is just because they're wet, that means that they're just super weak. When it gets to the point where it's like, no, that weakness stuff happens with, like, it's not the water, it's that they can't swim. They get weak when they touch sea prism stone. How can you mess up that badly on something that basic? But again, the One Piece movies do that as well. The animated movies, they do that as well, where it's like, just simply because they touched water, they're super weak, when it's like, no, that's not the case. They can't swim. They're still capable of fighting while wet, because they've done that multiple times within the series. But again, you got people just kind of putting the cart before the horse so they can just have whatever they want. And I'm already sick of it, and I'm only on the second episode. Well, here's going to the third one. I'm pretty sure they're about to introduce Usopp, and I wonder how the hell it is that I'm going to feel about him. Oh, also, predictions for what it is that they're going to do. They're going to have Garp go after Luffy and then admit that he's his grandfather, so then it'd be like this big-ass reveal or whatever. And it's not going to be a good reveal. It's going to be very bad. And then essentially you're probably going to have Luffy have some kind of issue with the fact that he never knew he had a grandfather, which again also kind of takes away a lot of the aspect for Luffy where it becomes like for his like ridiculous strength, his attitude, his personality, because him and Garp share these characteristics. But you got Garp as this dude with an accent that essentially is just this unlikable prick, and that is just really disheartening. This is a very hard show to watch if you're a fan, more than anything. I don't care what other takeaway you have, whether or not you like certain parts, or you think certain things look good, or you think cosplay is fantastic. If you're a fan of One Piece, this is a hard show to watch because it is tearing down so much that makes One Piece special. And it makes it even worse. I would say the reason why I'm so adamantly angry about the fact is that one of the main promoting aspects of it is that the showrunner is a huge fan, and then they work together with the creator when nothing could be further from the truth. So here's to the next episode.